Right, I'm just starting the timing chain replacement on the new engine for the Corsa right there. The reason I'm doing it is because the timing chains on these are a bit of an Achilles heel. So while it's out of the car, it's much easier to do. One thing I've noticed already, I did try to get it in a previous video, where the rocker cover is, someone had bodged a load of shit on here. And you can see why. There is a crack in there. So what they've done is they've over tightened that bolt, so this rocker cover is scrap now. So I'll have to get a new one. Right, I've taken the rocker cover off now, so now you can see where the chain is, and it's a good job we're doing it, because that shouldn't have that much play in it. Now, you will get a tiny bit when they're new, because the tensioner on these is done by oil pressure, so it takes up the slack when the engine's running. But that is fucked. So yeah, good job we're doing it. Right, for those who don't know how to take the alternator belt, or water pump belt, whatever you want to call it, how to take it off, it's easier for me to show you with this out of the car, but effectively that's the tensioner. You get an E14 E-Torx socket on there, you pull that down, it takes the tension off the belt, and then what you do is you put a drill bit or something in there, and that keeps the tension off, and then you can unbolt the tensioner as well. So I've only got two hands, but that's it. Pull that down, drill bit in there, and then you can take the tool off, keeps the tension off. Looks like it needs a new belt anyway. In fact, I haven't looked at the rest of the belt, but it's going to get a new one anyway. The water pump looks fairly new. You can see down there, there's evidence where an old one's been leaking. Bit of an oil leak, it's probably from where the rocker cover gasket's been leaking. Anyway, so yeah, for those who didn't know about the tensioner, that's how you do it. Right, so the engine's upside down now. I've taken the water pump off, taken the aircon pump off, taken the crank pulley off, taken the tensioner off. And now before I do anything else, what I want to do is take this sump off, and just check, make sure everything under there is all right. You have to take the sump bolts out anyway to get the timing case off. So I'll get that off, and then I'll get the timing case off, and I'll show you the chain and everything before I take it all off. Right, that's a sump off. So obviously just take into account the engine's upside down. This is like a strainer for the oil pickup here. You can see there's some crap in there, so that'll get cleaned out. If you're wondering what that is what your crankshaft sensor looks at. But no, generally it looks alright under there. A little bit black, but yeah, I've done a fair few of these, so they do get a bit of build up. The problem you get with these, when I was saying about the timing chains failing, is it's normally the plastic guides break, and you'll get loads of this plastic in here, and it'll actually fall in to that, so it'll be on the inside, and it blocks the oil ways and all that shit, and just leads to catastrophic engine failure, as well as the potential for the timing chain to jump and it fuck the engine that way as well. Right, my number one tip, I think, when doing this to save your time in the future, is when you get the new gasket, which is that there for the timing case, make yourself a little template, so when you take all these bolts out, you know exactly where they go. Now, some of these bolts are for the water pump, so you won't fill these holes, but what I'll do is, when I get the timing case off and I clean it up, I'll mark which ones are actually relevant, minus the water pump bolts and whatever, and you'll see exactly where the bolts are supposed to go. So when you go to put it back together, you're not fucking around, because some of them are different lengths and whatever, and you don't want to get them mixed up. Right, a bit more explanation about the template I've made. So when you take the timing case off, you take the alternator and the engine mount and the tensioner and all that sort of stuff, the water pump. So the only bolt on here that actually hold the timing case on, well, the other ones do as well, but these, once everything's off, these are all the ones that are left that hold it on. So I've highlighted those in red, so you know exactly which order those ones go back on. So for example, These ones are all water pump. That one's water pump. That one's for an engine mount. That one and that one are for the alternator. These 4 screw into the timing case from the bottom. But yeah, it's just always handy to have something like that. So you're not fucking around when you're trying to put it back together, working out which bolt went where. What I might do is, maybe I should mass produce these templates and I'll write on there the actual thread sizes and lengths and all that sort of stuff for every single bolt on there. So let me know what you think. Right, there we go. That's the timing chain all exposed now with the sprockets. When I was saying before about the tension on the chain being taken up with the engine running, that's the tensioner here. It's done off. There is a spring in there as well that takes up some of the slack, but the majority of it is done by oil pressure. So when you take that off, it's always worth checking the hole in there to make sure that's not been blocked, especially if the car's got a poor service history. What I was showing before about this little pickup for the strainer, you know, things like that will stop. There we go, take that off. I'll take it off in a minute. That's your oil pump. That's driven by the crankshaft pulley. I've had them before where you take this cover off and it's like a vein pump in there. And I've had it before where the vanes have been smashed to pieces and the actual oil pump, the actual ring is shattered. So it's another thing I need to check. So I've got as far as I want to get to with this one tonight. It's not in the timed position. I'll show you that one tomorrow and I'll show you how the timing tools go in, but effectively you lock the crankshaft there. The camshafts get locked in these grooves here. The timing tool only fits in one way, so you can't get the engine timing 180 degrees out, but it's always worth doing it and locking it off before you take the chain off, otherwise it's a bit of a pig. So I'll wash my shit up now and I'll show you that tomorrow. Right, I'm back on the A series Vauxhall engine tonight. So where I got up to the other night was I've got the timing case off. I've exposed all the chain. Just want to show you the locking tools that are used for this job. So that tool there is what goes in the end of the camshafts here, so that locks your cams. At the moment the engine's in the time position, so this tool here will only fit in one way. It's hard to tell if you look at this groove on the camshafts here. These bits slot into there. If the engine was 180 degrees out, these are slightly offset, so it won't actually go in. So it will only go in one way. The next tool is that one, which is the crankshaft locking tool. That goes in. You take this screw, or this plug here out. That winds in, and it sits inside a like a recess on the crankshaft itself, so it stops the crank moving. So once you've got them in, the crank and the camshafts won't move. This tool here is for when you're setting up the phase discs, or whatever you want to call them. So these here, there are sensors that look at them, so it knows that the engine's timed. They work in relation to the crankshaft sensor on the back down there. If these are in the wrong position, the engine's ECU is going to think, oh fucking hell, what the hell's going on here? So what you do, when the timing case is back on, you drop this on, and you see how all these line up here. It obviously screws into the top of the timing case, and then you know you've got the phase discs right, because what I need to do, I need to release these bolts here, which are actually they're actual oil control valves as well for the variable valve timing, but that's neither here nor there at the minute. So yeah, not really much more to say. So I'll lock the camshafts off with that, the crankshaft off with that. I'll have to undo these so I can spin the sprockets when I'm setting the chain tension, and I'll show you that in a bit more detail. So, but for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all these guides and everything off, yeah, that's it. Right, I've got the locking tool for the camshafts in place now, if you can see. So obviously the engine's upside down. That's this bit here. The bit I was on about where you lock the crankshaft off. So for those who want to try it at home and you're not sure sort of what the setup is, that big pin there, you take a plug off here. This pin, when the engine's in the time position, lines up with this slot don't know if you can see it there. See where it's sat in? That's basically where you lock the crankshaft off. So as that is now, that's the engine locked in the timed position. So now we're going to take the chain off, put all the new guides and everything on. I'll show you a picture after. Right, I just want to show you what I mean about the oil, the timing chain tensioner. So it works off a spring and oil pressure. Right, I'm just going to show you what I mean about the timing chain tensioner. So it's this thing here that I've got under spring pressure. If I let go, it's going to fall apart. But on the back of this, let me just let it go. There we go. So you see there's a spring in there. So that takes up a lot of the slack of the chain. So I've just dropped it out now, but if you look in there, there's a little piston. And that's a hole there that relies on oil pressure from here to take up a bit more of the slack. It keeps it constantly under tension, so it helps it out a bit. There's a spring, there's the main piston, and that's basically how the tensioner goes together. Anyway, so I've got the guides and the chain off. I won't do it now, I'm going to leave it tonight, but I'll take these sprockets off, check them out. Yeah, so you might notice the engine's a bit smaller now, but it's probably because I've taken the inlet manifold off the starter motor and the wiring loom just to give me a bit more access to stuff. So there's the pile of bits there at the minute that'll all need a deep clean as well. I have given the engine block a bit of a clean, because if you remember there's a load of oil and stuff down the front of it. So yeah, there's all the old bits there. There's the old timing chain gasket. It has bits of rubber and stuff on it that stick to the block when you take it off, so you have to clean all that off. There's the guide. That's the one that normally snaps, but it seems alright on this one. That's the one that hinges on there, and then the tensioner sits on there, and it sort of, pivots and takes up the slack. That's the top guide. Again, the points to note about these, and ask me how I found out. So these help lubricate the chain. There's a small, so they sit there. There's actually a small hole there where oil comes out. That helps lubricate the chain. So the oil comes out of here. When I've done some of these in the past, someone gave me a kit, or provided a kit, I don't know where it was from, but that hole was blocked, it hadn't been drilled properly. There was a bit of plastic sort of stuck over it, so it wouldn't have been any good. So always get a good quality kit when you're doing these. I don't know where we got it from, but we sorted it out in the end. But that was on the older Z series engine, but essentially it's the same setup. The only difference really is that it's got variable valve timing, which is what these are. Anyway, see you in a bit. Righto, only a quick video here. So when you're undoing these two bolts here, which are also oil flow control valves, I recommend using a spanner on this hex bit of the camshaft here. I use an impact gun to take these off, but if I do that without this, there's a worry that I might flick the cam and it might shear off a bit of the casting of the camshaft, and I don't want that. So personally I prefer putting this on. I'll show you what I mean about this. So on the older Z series engines, they're just a normal sprocket with a normal bolt. Oh, here we go. Okay. This is the timing disc I was on about. So if you get that wrong, the sensor won't pick it up properly, and it'll stop the car from starting, or it'll run like a bag of shit, whatever. Anyway, so when you want to give your car some beans, there's a solenoid that opens. Well, actually on these it doesn't open, it's actually like an electromagnet thing. Where are they? There they are, excuse the mess. So the way these work, bear with me, my knees crack. So that sits in the pulley like that. You can see ports on here, so these allow oil to come through. There's a little bit of a plunger here. This here is like a little solenoid thing. When that energizes, it pushes that plunger out. That then pushes that in, and it allows oil to flow into this actuator here. And what this does is advance and retard the engine timing. So they're designed to give you a better fuel economy at lower RPM, more power at higher RPM. They're quite, you know, it's the way things are going nowadays. A lot of cars use variable valve timing now. But yeah, you can take these apart and you can actually look inside them, but I'm not going to on this one. But yeah, I just wanted to show you that before I do anything else. So the other, oh that's it, that's a good point. The other thing I always recommend, so that phase disc, because they're different for the inlet and the exhaust, I will keep that one with the exhaust. So as you look at the engine, that's the left hand one. That one, there we go. That's the inlet one. I also, as well, for extra good measure, is I paint, when they're at the 12 o'clock position, I just put a bit of red paint on, just so when I put them back on, I know roughly where to put them before I put the locking tool in. So yeah, anyway, these spanners are quite a tight fit on here as well, so they need a bit of wriggling to get it back off. Now I'm ready to sort of put the gasket on. It sits over these dowels here, so you know it's in the right place. Then you can start building everything back up, etc. Make it all nice, clean and shiny like I want to do. So yeah, I've got a little job to do tonight on a brake pipe on a Corsa right there, and then I can crack on with this and get some more videos of this. And it's probably the bit people are more interested in, is how it all goes back together with the engine timing and all that stuff. Right, I'll see you in a bit. I promise this video will only be quick, but just to show you how the timing chain gasket goes on in the dowels. So you've got these here to help locate this. So that goes, crap filming, there. And that one will go there. So it slides over there, you know it's in the right place. Something you can get quite common on Corsas, people will mix up a head gasket problem when you get mayonnaise engine oil, or they call it a head gasket Simpson if they get oil and coolant mixing. What can actually happen is the timing chain gasket can seal. So this is where your water pump sits, and if this fails, you can get coolant leaking into the sump. It gives a very similar fault as a head gasket fault. So with these, don't always jump to head gasket, get it tested properly first. Because I think on, I don't know if you can see on that one, that's the old gasket. So you can see that one there. Actually, yeah, you can see there's a split there, but that might have been where I pulled it off, where it was stuck to the engine block. But anyway, so you're checking your oil and it's all milky like mayonnaise. It's not always head gasket, it could be this that's failed here. Now that I've got my Land Rover job out of the way, I can go back to the engine for the Corsa right there. Excuse the rubbish. I mean, just shit everywhere at the minute. That's all the bits of this engine. Anyway, so the last video I think I did on here was just showing you how the gasket went on, where the dowels and stuff are. So tonight I'm going to start putting the timing chain and things back on. I always soak the new chain in oil. Some people do, some people don't. Up to them. The kit comes with all the new bolts, new bottom sprocket, new timing chain cover, crankshaft seal, the guides, top guide, and the tensioner. There's a pin in there that stops it from popping out because of the spring that I've shown people before. What I did, I think what I've said in a previous video, hopefully get a bit of light on there. Some of these kits, if you get like a really naff one, this hole isn't quite drilled properly, so this hole here allows oil to come up and lubricate the chain. So this bolt's on the top here, oil comes up there, this guide, I'll just move that out of the way. This guide bolts onto there, like that. So you see the oil jet comes up there, comes up through there, like that tiny little hole, and that's what keeps the chain lubricated. So I'll get that on in a bit, I've got a visitor coming first to do a quick diagnostic on a Mini, and then I'll crack on putting this back together. Right, I got a bit late last night to do a video on the timing chain, but effectively that's everything back on. All the guides are on. I've left the pin in the tensioner now, I'm going to pull that in a second. When you put this on, you leave these loose, so it still allows these to spin and take up the slack in the chain. So I pull that. Oh, there you go, it's already, you can already see the difference. Where the other chain was a bit stretched, there's quite a lot of slack in it. But that's the tensioner out. When there's oil pressure, when the engine's running, that will take up even more of the slack if there is any. I mean, if I try and get, oh, there we go. So, remember before you could almost pick it off the sprocket. Anyway, so these stay loose. I'll tighten up these centre bolts properly when the timing case is back on, because then I can put the timing tool in for these phase discs that the camshaft sensors look at, so it knows the engine's in time when it's running. Otherwise you run the risk of the engine not running or running like a bag of shit if these aren't in the right position. So anyway, I'll get the timing case back on, but I do need to give it a clean first, and I'll probably show you how to do the crankshaft oil seal on it as well. Right, I've cleaned up the timing case as best as I can now, and I'm just going to replace the crankshaft or the crank pulley seal. This is the original one, that one there, so that was in there. I use like a hooked tool to get it out, but what you have to make sure is that you don't score or damage anything in there, otherwise it won't seal. So that's the new one. I've got a seal installation kit, so what you do, you'll measure what size that is, so 55mm. Good enough for government work. I won't use a 55mm drift out of this set. I'll use 54 because I don't want to, when I put it in, I don't want to risk catching this, so I use a 54, which should be plenty to get that in. Now I can't do this and film at the same time, but that's the new seal. I put a little bit of lube around the edge to help it in. You get it started, and then effectively you get that in there. You give that some gentle taps, make sure it goes in even until you hear it seat properly. Okay, that's the new crank pulley oil seal in. You can actually see the oil pump in there. So that hexagon drive there, the actual crank pulley, is what drives it. It's like a hexagonal stub shaft that sits in there, and that drives that pulley there. I did check the oil pump on this, all the vanes are okay. So the crank seal's in, I can put that back, this timing case back on the engine now. Right, the timing case is back on now, or the timing chain cover, whatever you want to call it. That sits on the same two dowels that the timing chain gasket sits on. So at the minute that's not bolted on, it's just resting on the dowels. So the reason I made this thing with the gasket is so you know exactly which bolts go where on here. So before I put any ancillaries on, these ones with the red markings are all the ones that just hold the timing case on, they don't do anything else. So put a few corner ones in just to hold it steady. Now I believe these are 8 Newton meters. I will double check before I do it, but I'm trying to record and put these in at the same time, but you get the gist of it. I'll get all these red ones in, and then the next thing after that probably for me is getting the sump cleaned out and getting that back on. Before I clean the sump and put it back on, I want to, now the timing case is back on, I want to just show you how that the timing tool goes in for the timing discs. So I could, if I wanted to, I could tighten all this up now, but I'm going to do the sump first. So these are your camshaft position sensors here and here for your inlet and exhaust. So these discs have, what's the word, unequal spacings between these bits and bobs here. So as these are spinning past the sensor, the ECU is looking for a particular signal that relates to the crankshaft position sensor there, so it knows the engine's in time. What you can get, if you get one with a really badly stretched timing chain, these can be slightly out from each other, and you'll start getting fault codes that say things like crankshaft correlation, stuff like that, and that's normally a sign that the engine timing's out or the chain's stretched, and these two are quite, not quite singing together. So you get the where is it? You get this tool on. Get it on the right way. So you get those round to the right position. I did put some paint on them. So that one goes, bear with me a minute, I'll try and get these in. So that one goes there. That one slots in there, so you can see. I'll take that back off again now. You see you got these here, so that goes in there. This will screw into the timing case, which you need to do before you lock all this up. That way you know the phase discs are all in the right position. Anyway, I'm going to do the sump now. I'll do this after. Right, I'm back again, and I've had a few people ask me recently where the crankshaft sensor is located on these, because they've been having trouble with theirs. So just to quickly show you, if you open the bonnet of the car, the engine will be laid out like this. Gearbox that end, obviously timing chain end this end. The crankshaft sensor is located underneath, around the back of the engine. It sits underneath the starter motor, which goes there. And to take that off, all it is an electrical plug, one Torx bolt. To take that off, the correct tool is an E10 Torx socket. To take that off, pull that out, put a new one in, job's a good one. Right, so if you saw the picture earlier, I've had the water pump turn up 2 weeks late, which is this bit here, sits behind the pulley. That's back on. The reason I've put a new one on, even though the old one looked good, is because it's such a critical part on the car. When the new engine goes in and I come to sell it, I don't want to take any chances on something that's so important. So new water pump on, the pulley's on, the alternator's back on, the tension is on, the crank pulley's on, the aircon pump is on. Next thing I need to do is clean the sump out. I've run out of brake cleaner, but I am not putting that back anywhere near that engine looking like that. So that's going to get properly cleaned out, and then that can go back on. Right, so I've cleaned up the mating surfaces for the gasket. These A series engines don't have a conventional sump gasket like the older Z series do, that had like a gasket similar to the timing chain, where it's like a metal gasket with a rubber strip around it. This just uses like an RTV silicone sealant, so you've got to make sure all that's clean and free from any oil and grease. Done the same with the sump as well. I've given that a clean out. You need to make sure that this little strainer or filter goes back in there, and that just protects the oil pump from any crap or heavy debris that's in your engine oil, so it won't draw it up into the pump and pump it around the engine, which you don't want. So I'll get this back on, and then I'll get some pictures for you. Right, that's the sump back on, or as I think the Americans like to call it, an oil pan. I do have an American friend, I know he might correct me. So there's quite a lot of little Torx head bolts on this, and then you tighten it down evenly to 10 Newton meters for each one. That's it really. Not going to teach anyone to suck eggs. Well, what have we got here? So this engine's nearly done now. There's some exhaust studs and stuff missing here. So what I've done is I've bought some new ones from LDS Engineering. I'll show you later. I've got to take the kids to a party in a minute. But I'll show you how to get these old studs out and I get the new ones in. Right, I did a video a while back about this Corsa that needs a new engine. I did sort of try to explain why it had seized in the first place. So there was bugger all coolant in it, and you can see where that housing is on the right hand side of the cylinder head there. All that pink crusty stuff has been running out down the front of the gearbox. You see, that's what all this pink crystallised stuff is. So I think what had happened is it overheated to the point where it just locked up, and that was it, game over really. Something as simple as a small coolant leak there has knackered that engine there. So I've got a new one that I've done the timing chain on, because they are an Achilles heel on these, so I thought before I put it in I'll check it over. So that's got a new timing chain kit and everything on it, built up, ready to go. So been on this for probably about an hour now, and you can see they, you know, these come apart quite easy. I mean, the whole front end pretty much comes off in one go. So yeah, I'll crack on with this, and I'll do a video at some point where I've stripped the old engine down, and I'm probably going to see score marks and stuff on the cylinder walls, or knackered piston rings or something like that. Anyway, I'll catch you later. Okay, just doing the engine swap on the Corsa. I'll put some pictures up and stuff like that. I'm going to show you why the old one failed. Obviously you can see evidence here of where water's got into the engine, it's rusted. All those bits there. All this pink stuff here is where the coolant housing has been leaking. And if you can see, spin it around, there's a load. Someone's used some sort of coolant product, some sort of coolant stop leak product in there, which has blocked the thermostat. I'll try and get a bit of, try and turn it towards the light if I can. There we go. See all that gummed up jelly shit. I'm not going to name the product because I don't want to get sued, but just my personal opinion, don't use them, try and fix the leak properly. Right then, I'm getting back onto doing this Corsa engine. Last bit I got up to really was on the new one. I've spent ages taking all the wiring loom, all the pipe work, everything off that, cleaning it up all nice. Went to go connect the last little breather pipe on here, and as you can see, the new engine, the inlet manifold's got a snapped fitting on it. So, show you on the old one, that's what it's supposed to look like. So yeah, I spent ages putting all that shit back on, only to realise that that's fucking snapped. So now I've got to take that off. I've got to clean up the old one. But it's not all bad news. My driveway's done. So I've got no massive rockery now in the way, makes it a lot easier to get cars around on the drive. So anyway, I get this thing cleaned up. And then I can drop this gearbox off. I'm going to clean the gearbox up. I've got a new clutch kit ready to go on the new engine as well. And that's it, I think. Right, I'm going to show you how incredibly difficult it is to take off this Vauxhall Corsa air intake manifold. 1, 2, 3. Where are they? There they are. 4, 5, 6. My God, what a difficult job that was. There it comes off. The complete unit. There we go. So I'm going to give this a good clean up. I'm going to put some new gaskets in there, and yeah, that's it. 6 bolts. Much easier when the engine's out. When it's in, it's a bit more of a pig. But yeah, that's it. Here we go. Right, the gearbox is going to come off the old engine now, so this is going to get cleaned up as well. As you can see, I've taken the bolts out already, so hopefully a bit of jiggling. There we go. You can see where that coolant housing has been leaking. It's all gone inside there as well. That'll be getting replaced, the concentric slave cylinder. But yeah, so yeah, that housing that had been leaking here, it obviously dribbled all in. It's all gone in there. It's a bit crusty or whatever. Anyway, for those who don't know, that bit there is your clutch. So when you wonder why it's so expensive to have a clutch done, you don't need to take the engine out. You can obviously do it with the engine in the car and take that out separate. It's a bit fiddly, but it's much easier when the engine's out. I would never take the engine out to a clutch on one of these, but some might. Anyway, so that'll get all nice and cleaned up anyway. I'll get I've got a new, that'll go in the bin. I've got a new clutch kit to go on the new engine. The inlet manifold off the old engine, I've cleaned it up, just soaking it with some Auto Glim tyre shine to give it a bit of gloss. And then that'll be getting swapped over when I can be asked. Right, the cam belt's done on that one. Back onto this one now. So that's the Corsa that had the new engine fitted to it. Got a new subframe now. Redoing changing it is peace of mind for when the new owner has the car. They rot quite badly here. This one isn't too bad. I've seen a lot worse. So I'm going to swap all the bits over. Steering rack's over there. Swap the anti-roll bar over. You can see a bit more of the corrosion underneath. So I just don't like the look of it, to be honest. So get a nice new one on, then when it goes for MOT, it's not going to be sat in the back of my mind if it's going to fail for it. Evening all, sorry I've not done a video for a little while, been a bit busy with holiday and doing other jobs and stuff like that. So I'll put some pictures up, but just a quick update on where I'm at with this Corsa. I've put the replacement engine in. The cat's now back on with brand new nuts and whatever. So I thought I was making good progress with it. Went to connect some of the other bits to the engine, and what I found was this vacuum line for your brake servo is missing, and this line that goes to this little solenoid here has been chopped. So the vacuum line for the brake servo comes off the inlet manifold here, gives you the vacuum for your brake boost. And if I remember right, it's getting late, but I think that's like the one that goes back towards the fuel tank, like a vent valve or evap valve, or a purge valve, whatever you want to call it. So you think you're getting somewhere, and then you find shit like that. Now the previous owner did say that the recovery company that recovered it when it broke down originally was a bit dodgy. They broke the headlight, bits had been stolen out of it, and I'm just wondering whether they've helped themselves to that shit there. So something else I've got to sort out. But we'll do it right, and we'll make sure that whoever ends up with this car has a decent car that isn't dodgy. Right, I'm just having a garage clear out, and that's the Corsa with the new engine in. Try to show you something on the old one. So when the old one overheated, it caused some damage to the cylinder head. So these are your camshafts that sit in here. You have to forgive the crudeness of the video. So obviously you get caps that sit on here, these like journal caps, and there's oil that comes up. And obviously stops these from, you know, being metal on metal. It's for lubrication. So the oil comes up through these holes here, And you notice these journals look fine. You get to this one and it's obviously been blocked or something, not got the right oil. In fact, I've put the wrong cam in there. It was this camshaft here, so if you look there, take that one out, hang on. So that camshaft was in there, and you can see it's had no oil. So they haven't got shells on these. So this cylinder head, in my opinion, is now scrap. So I won't ever be able to use that again. But yeah, just thought I'd show you that. You know, it had overheated and obviously had some sort of oil issue as well. Evening all. Just while I'm waiting for the next car to turn up, I've got the old timing case here off the Corsa. I've done the engine swap on. So that was the engine that had seized solid, and I want to show you the damage it did to the oil pump, which was driven by the crank pulley. It's supposed to be a hexagonal shape in there. So to get to the oil pump, you take off this back plate here. The oil pump's in there, so just bear with me. I'm going to do this with one hand. Although these oil pump failures are quite common on these anyway, but obviously a seized engine doesn't help. So let's get these screws out of the way. And hopefully that will just lift. There's the plate. So it's like a little vane pump. So as oil comes in, this is eccentric inside here. So it should, I don't know if you can see there. So you've got these little bits here, here. These are where the oil comes in. Well, it drives that way because this is back to front at the minute. So it drives, the oil comes in, it squeezes it, and then obviously forces it out where it's supposed to go. This pump has shattered, so you can see here, there's pieces of it. Should all be one thing. No, I had a friend recently with one of these. He works on cars. Don't know where he got the car from, but that one had a failed oil pump as well. So probably wondering what engines these affect. So these are any of the newer shape Corsa D that still have the Vauxhall engine before they changed to Peugeot. And it's the A12 XER or A14 XER engine code. The pieces of the vane, these are what compress the oil. So yeah, this can happen on engines that don't seize. It's quite a common thing on them. I mean, you can see there as well where it's broken there as well. Just pieces of it all over the shop. Let's try and get that out if I can. I can't be asked to get a screwdriver out of the drawer. Using a random knackered old paint scraper. There we go. So that's the outer housing of the pump. Spring there that's going to ping off. So what you want to check if you do get an oil pump failure is to make sure it hasn't actually damaged the case itself. See, there's more bits of thing in there. So yeah, there is a smashed oil pump, and this one's a 2012 Corsa. So any from that year on that have got the variable valve timing, the earlier ones don't tend to really suffer from failure. I'm not saying they don't, but it seems to be the newer ones that do it. So yeah, hopefully that helps someone. Evening all. So I am just trying to put the last bits together on this Corsa. So the ECU is back in, the battery tray is back in. I had to look at a lot of old photos I took to remember where all the earths and stuff go. So there's 3 earths that go down there, there's 3 earths that go on there. And I need to get a new coil pack because the old one broke. I can get the coolant bottle on in a minute and the battery, and then I can at least turn it over to make sure it's all right. Right, it's me, I'm back again. So me being a bit of a mong, thought, right, I'll give it a go, I'll try and start it. Completely forgot the battery was flat and didn't trickle charge it, so I've charged it up a bit now. And I'm going to go for the first start. Now, there's no spark plugs in this, so as you can see, so the more savvy amongst you will know that there's no compression there. So I've got the key in, we've got some charge, and we're going to try and start it now. Obviously it won't start because there's no spark plugs or coil pack in it, but I just want to see if it turns over. Oh, not quite enough charge, but it's trying. Evening all. So on Friday I bought a coil pack for this one. Should have been the last piece of the puzzle to get it running. It was the wrong one. Swapped it today. I found out what the issue was. The part number on the last 4 digits of the part number on the other one were the same as this. So they only looked at the last 4 when they give it me. So we'll get that in. We'll nip that up a little bit. And then we'll plug it in. And see if it starts. There we go. Plug this fucker in. Okay. Get the key. And let's see if it runs. Might run lumpy because the airflow meter's not plugged in. So we've got power. Put the window down. Ooh. Let's see. I won't run it too long because there's no exhaust on it. However, it runs. Evening everyone. Right, so we know it runs now. I ran it last night. I think it was last night or the night before. But it had no exhaust on after the cat. It's now got an exhaust on it. So let's see what it sounds like. Beautiful. I can't run it for long because there's no coolant bottle on it, but that is now nice and quiet. I also managed to fix the gear stick that wouldn't return to the middle, so if you look now it springs back. All that was like a little ball joint end underneath that had come loose on the gearbox linkages. So we're doing well. The engine light's on because obviously I've still got a couple of sensors unplugged, but we're nearly there. Nearly there. Good evening everyone again. So that beast over there, it's a long time ago I made a video. Hang on a minute. I have a bird.
It looks like it's gone.
I have a bird following me around the driveway. So when I bought the car originally, the headlights on it were smashed. So because the car's running now, I've got some nice new headlights to go in, and I might put that bird in there as well. Well, here we go. It looks like an actual car again. Still got to do a few little bits and bobs with bodywork and stuff like that, but on the whole, quite happy with it. The only problem I've got now is I've shut the bonnet, and there's an issue with the bonnet catch, so I'm going to have to try and open it from underneath and see what's going on there. But other than that, we have a nice, quiet, running car, almost ready to be sold. Good afternoon everyone. If you remember, I shut the bonnet on this without checking that the bonnet catch worked properly before I put the bumper on. So at the moment, as it stands, I have a car that I can't open the bonnet on. I found out why, but I just want to show you how you do open the bonnet from underneath the car. So I'm hoping with this torch and this screwdriver I can show you. So you need to go under the car, try and film this as best I can. So you're going under, and then you're going to look up under the first bit in front of where the aircon condenser is here. Then what you're going to see is how can I hold the torch at the same time? Let me try this. So what you can see there, hopefully, is the bonnet catch. There's a little like a pigtail there for the spring. Let me see if I can get this torch a bit better. Okay, so you go up with your screwdriver into there, and you want to jam it to the right hand side of that pigtail. There you go, and then lever off the frame there. So I don't know if you can see that a bit better. Let me try and get a bit closer. So you effectively, and that is how you pop the bonnet. There we go. And then you can just use the lever. Right, at the end of that video I pressed the wrong button and cut it off quite short. So I was going to show you why the bonnet catch didn't work. So here is your bonnet cable here. It runs all the way around to the handle on that side of the car. This is quite an important bit here. So what I'll show you is this here is where you pull the cable, and that's what it's pulling against there. The problem I had was that this clamp here was clamping up here. So I had it was too long effectively, so this bit here was over there. So when you pulled the handle, it didn't come back enough to actually push that across. So this bit from underneath was where you could see on the last video where you jam the screwdriver and you ping it across. So hopefully that helps people if you have a snapped bonnet cable. Mine wasn't snapped in this case, it was just that I'd not really thought about it when I put this back on and didn't check it before I put the bumper on. So yeah, now I can start tidying up the other bits under here, and it's actually nearly ready for MOT. Well, sometimes it's about adding a nice little finishing touches. There's the original cover for the engine. So I believe this thing goes, there we are. That looks better, doesn't it? So what have I got left? I've obviously got to clean it. I've got to change some panels to make it look better. Needs a bloody good clean inside. The glove box is broken, these clips are broken, and the little bar in there is missing, so I don't know what happened there. There's some bodywork damage under here. I'm not a bodywork guy, so if anyone's got any advice on how to sort that out, let me know. Wheels need a bloody good clean and a bit of a refurb. But that's it. Right, I'm hoping this video shows you what I wanted to show you. So one of the best things someone ever showed me for cleaning carpets in a car before you wet vacuum is basically a bog brush on the end of a drill. Loosens everything up, ready for the hoover. Right then, let's try and get some of these stains out. So I've got some cleaner in here. It isn't brake clean in there, by the way. It is just like of bubbly detergent in there. So we'll soak that a little bit. You can see it's starting to lift already. And then what I use is a nice little impact driver with a brush on it. Look at that. Look at all that shit lifting off there. And then we'll use a wet vac to suck it all out. Going much better. We can do the rest of the carpet now, can't we, Amy? So this is the colour of the water out of the Corsa carpet after it's been cleaned. Pretty grim. Evening all, just doing the front brakes on the Corsa project that had the new engine. So it's been a while since I've done much on this. I've got a new door for it there to go on to replace the one that's all, and if you can see it, it's a bit damaged on this one. So yeah, this was the last bit now before I can send it for MOT. So what I've done, new discs and pads on the front, and I've just given these a little bit of a paint just to tidy them up a bit. So yeah, this will go for MOT, new door on, and then hopefully pass the MOT and be up for sale soon. If anyone knows anyone who wants a nice low mileage Corsa that's had new subframe, engine, headlights, bloody all sorts. Anyway, I'm going to do the other side now, and then I'll put the photos up I've taken of when I've painted these and stuff later on. Alright, evening all. So I've got a bit of time now after Christmas to carry on with the Corsa project. Last update on this, I suppose, was I was going to change the brake calipers because they were, when I put the new brakes on, I thought they were a bit tight and they had a bit of brake imbalance. Although I've had a couple of people get in touch saying it might be the ABS pump causing the imbalance. However, due to the fact that these were stood for 2 years anyway, I'm going to replace these, and if it does still pull to one side, then I'll replace the ABS pump as well. So I don't like reusing the old hoses when I replace brake calipers, so I'm going to replace that as well. I'm just freeing that off there. So if you can see, so I'm just working that back and forth because these can seize. That nut has to spin independently of that hard pipe. Otherwise, if it doesn't and you carry on spinning that, it will shear the pipe off, and then you've got to make a new brake pipe. So that's actually cracked off nice and free now. So as you can see, it's not turning the pipe with it. So I'm going to get that off. Then I've got a new caliper, new hose. I'll do the same on the other side. Bleed it, take it out for a spin, see how it performs. If it does still pull to one side, then I'll change the ABS pump. So yeah, I'll get some more videos as I go along for this one. Right, me again. So there's the old caliper and hose. There's the new one on. I haven't bled it yet. I just went to do the other side, and guess what? The new brake caliper doesn't fit. So on the other side, when I put the new one on, what I tend to do is I normally put the bottom bolt in, swing it up, and then I'll put this bolt in. But on the new one, the actual casting of the caliper sits about, I don't know, 7 or 8 mil higher, so the holes don't line up. So I think it's been machined wrong. The part number on the box does tell me it's the right one. However, when I so the caliper would fit on that way. I'll try and show you down here. So this is the side where the new part doesn't fit. This bit here on the new one, it sort of comes up to about there rather than here, so the hole's too high. So I'm gonna have to take that back and get that swapped. So I've had to put the old one back on for now. The car's not going anywhere, so it doesn't really matter, but it's just frustrating that I've only just had time to get around to doing it, and the part's wrong. But hey ho, you know, for all the best will in the world, things happen, I suppose. Evening everyone. So I'm back on the Corsa project after having to do the clutch on my Land Rover. So if you remember last time, the new brake calipers that came, the one on the driver's side was fine. The one that came for this side was, I don't know if it was machined wrong. It looked like the right caliper, but the top mounting hole up here looked like it had been drilled in sort of 8mm up in the wrong place, so the hole there wouldn't line up with the hole here, so obviously that bolt there wouldn't go in. So I've got a new caliper now. This one's actually gone on. I just got to tighten these bolts and stuff up. New brake hose on there as well. This little clip here, for those who don't know, is what sort of stops this bouncing around. It keeps this pipe where it is. When you fit these, there's some little lock-in tabs on there that line up with some holes in here or grooves in here, so this locks into position and doesn't spin either. So yeah, all I've got to do now, tighten them up, and then effectively I need to bleed these brakes up, take it for a drive. If the car is still pulling to the left, it's probably the ABS pump, but we'll find out anyway, and I'll let you know if it is. If I do have to do it, it will make for an interesting video anyway. Hi everyone, so tonight on this Corsa I'm changing the ABS pump. So when I did the calipers, I thought that was the reason why it might be pulling to one side when I was braking, so there's one new one there. There's the other new one there. When I tried to bleed this one, there was nothing coming out. So a few people messaged me and said, oh, it's probably the ABS pump, quite a common fault. So I've got a reconditioned one here. I think it was 90 quid with, I think it's a year's warranty or something on it. So the ABS pump on here is on here. There's a cover on there, held on with a couple of screws, a couple of pipes. Hopefully none of them snap. And yeah, I'll get that in, and then I'll see if I can recruit one of the local school dads to help me bleed the brakes on it. Right, so this here is your ABS pump. Now, what you've got to do, hopefully you can see that there. So these here are the two pipes that come from your brake master cylinder. And these four here are the ones that go to your four wheels. There was a plastic cover on here which just pulls off. You have a plug on here for all your electronics, or for the ABS ECU, which is built in. And then you have these two nuts here which physically hold it in place in the car. So as you can see, I've got that one out already. This one just needs to come out. That's the two top ones. Not quite there yet. Nearly there. There we go. You will lose a bit of fluid, so I'm going to put a rag under there in a second. I'll take these four off. I'll undo them. That unit pulls out. It's a really easy job on these. People hear ABS pump and they panic and they think, oh my god, it's a big job. But it isn't. It's actually on these very, very, very simple. And for £90 for a recon unit with warranty, you can't really argue. Okay, so that's the new ABS pump in. What I do, because that there is the plug for the ECU, I put a glove over that because these pipes are dripping and I don't want to get brake fluid in there. So I'll leave that on while I put all these on. The nuts need to go back on there. These little yellow bungs come out, the pipes go back in, put the electrical connector back in, and that is it. And then I just need to bleed the system. Right, finally some good news. So this Corsa project is pretty much finished. Mechanically it's done. It's ready for MOT now. The new ABS pump and the new brake calipers have fixed the problem. The brakes pulling to one side and no brakes in a straight line. So that's ready for MOT now. The only other thing to do once it's passed is I have a new door there to put on it, because this door has a bit of damage on it, and then it will be ready for sale.